Hey, happy Halloween, everyone, and welcome to a special crossover episode where we, the gentlemen of the Mount Rushmore Podcast, are sitting down and having a spooktacular good time with Liz and Brenda from
Stupidstition.
Hey, Jeff, you said this was a cross-dressing episode.
Oh, God, the dress looks great.
Well,
on
thank you.
Richard.
Thank you, at least. It really shows my legs, I thought.
And
Yeah.
it's low cut, which I love.
Yeah, Jeff and I are wearing our normal podcaster attire of green cargo shorts and a superhero T-shirt in gray. Jeff and Richard is here in a ball gown.
Well, isn't that
It's a fancy.
It's a typical Halloween thing where you want to kind of take it up a notch in the sexy department.
Takes me back to prom.
It totally
The
does.
sparkles bring out your eyes.
Well, I am a big fan of the Stupidstition Podcast, which explores superstitions throughout the world, going to a different region or country or area of the United States every episode, and not only exploring indigenous superstitions and examining whether they're kind of legit or maybe stupid, but also a cocktail from each of those regions. Am I right, Liz?
Yes.
Brenda, what do we have this time?
Today we have a Norwegian-inspired cocktail called, what was it called?
Don't remember.
Well, while they're looking that up,
A Fruitgard.
yeah, sure.
We should be well prepared for this since we've been drinking them
Yeah.
the entire afternoon.
The glasses are sitting on the tables at IKEA. You can go, no, that's Swedish. So,
Mind you, we've had like 3 or 4 of these, plus some shots on the side.
and we're also imbibing scary cakes from Hostess, which are what, Richard?
They're just cupcakes.
With
that
orange
are-
frosting.
With orange frosting.
So it's a Norwegian forest cocktail, which is inspired by the Norwegian forest.
Right on. So, speaking of forests or green areas, the Mount Rushmore podcast is
This
recorded.
is a hell of a transition.
I want to see you pull this off, Jeff. Let's pull it.
incredible.
Pull this out.
In a forested but also cleared area that is geographically known as a cemetery. The Valhalla Cemetery is just across the fence from the Mount Rushmore podcast studios. So this is making it even more spooktacular and scary for this Halloween
So we're going to
episode.
go after, right? We're
Yeah.
going to go jump the fence real quick?
We're going to jump the fence.
And occasionally Bigfoot wanders around your neighborhood, too.
That's right. Sasquatch is known to inhabit the neighborhood. The topic we have chosen to help discuss with our podcast guests, the Stupidstition podcasters who are Liz and Brenda, is the Mount Rushmore of Hauntings. Now, Liz, why are you excited about this topic?
Because spirits are real.
Whoa.
Ghost story.
Oh, my God.
Well, it's Halloween.
Okay.
And so we're very excited, especially this season, to be talking about some hauntings. And I think for me and Brenda, it's always been something we've been obsessed about. And it's not just hauntings. Like, we normally at Stupidstition cover aliens, any type of
Myths, you know.
folklore, anything that's just kind of outside of the ordinary realm.
Yeah.
And we just kind of like to reflect on that and get into it more. And then we're like, are these lights really aliens? Or did someone have their car die in the middle of the night because it's headlights?
Oh, so you speculate as to the veracity of the story. What is it really?
Yeah, we often find that we get halfway through a story and then we're like, this is such bullshit.
We do that too.
People get that halfway through our episodes. And they're like, this is
Yeah, thus the cocktails, because it helps everything move along.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, Richard and Michael are also tasting the cocktail. What do you guys think?
It's great. The rosemary is wonderful.
Right?
Oh,
Yeah.
nice.
It's a fancier one.
I love a cocktail with lawn clippings.
Yes.
Yeah.
They're fresh from your
Yeah.
lawn, Jeff.
It tastes pretty good on a
We-
roast chicken
But the-
and in a cocktail.
We got-
Lime is fresh from your yard.
Yeah,
First,
and the
yeah.
rosemary is from some flowers right in your backyard
Oh, God.
over the fence.
Oh, wait a minute.
There was just
So
a
we-
plethora
yeah.
of them, so we grabbed
I had to
some.
leave my shoes outside because, you know, they're covered in mud.
Yeah.
Oh, well, I think we should jump right in and explore the Mount Rushmore of Hauntings. Normally on our podcast, Richard and Michael go head-to-head and debate each other, but we are going up against the Stupidstition podcasters. So since they are our guests, they will go first, and I'll just be straight up at the beginning. They'll probably win. But why don't you guys give it a good shot anyway?
Okay, well,
All right, so let us start the Mount Rushmore of Stupidstitions by evaluating the first choice, which is made by this gang.
All right. Let me just pull it up, kind of. All right. So we're going to tag team this because we do everything together.
Because we're besties, duh.
Yeah. And
The duh the duh was a little aggressive, don't you think? I can't believe they attacked us with the duh.
I'll be haunted by that
Duh.
for the rest of my life. Why is there always a plane? There's always a plane. There's always going to be
I
a plane.
think this could be a time for shots.
Or
Okay.
a sip of our drink.
Oh, yes.
Or that one.
Liz, you and Brenda, you have a tradition on the Stupidstition podcast. Whenever you have a plane fly overhead,
Well, it's a train that passes by.
Train.
what happens?
We
have to take a shot.
Okay, we're going to be drunk. real
Today
soon.
we had 5. Who knew? I purposely try and time it out, and I go, "Oh, let me use the bathroom real quickly in the next 5
And
minutes."
shove like tortilla chips or something in our mouth so we can sober up a bit.
Yeah, it doesn't help really, but I feel like recording sober is so scary.
That's scary.
Hear slurs like, I can't say this.
Okay, so looks like we're going to kick things off with Liz and Brenda with their first choice of a haunting, which is what?
We are talking about the White Lady of Ballet Drive in the Philippines. So she's very well known over there. It's like a staple in their community. And essentially she is a hitchhiking ghost that when you're driving on this Ballet Drive, it's an actual street covered by all these trees, these ballet trees. When you're driving on this road, it gets so windy and dark that there's definitely like little pockets where there's no light that enters onto the highway. So when you're driving, you may see a hitchhiker, a woman dressed in all white, wanting a ride home. You pull over, you
Usually
go.
it's during the midnight hours.
Oh,
or
yes.
so.
As we learned during the witching hour,
Yeah.
which is 3 p.m. if you're not aware, or 3 a.m. if you're not aware.
3 p.m. in the afternoon.
That's my
It's a radio show here out on AM 570.
that's my napping hour. And so you'll pull over, you ask her if she needs a ride, and we have testimony to that of people mentioning they pulled over to give this woman a ride. She gets in the car, they start to drive away. Midway through the drive, she says, "Slow down around this turn or you can fall off the cliff and die." So they usually go, "What are you talking about?" And as soon as they turn back, she's out of the car.
Ooh.
Never to be seen again.
She does not leave 5 stars. She does not.
She does not. No tip. I know. No
She's like, "Bye,
end
bitches.
destination.
I'm leaving."
Yes.
Wow, that's kind of creepy. That's the Philippines? You said?
That's in the
Philippines,
Philippines.
yes.
Yeah.
Now you two do a lot of research on this. Does your BS detector go off, or is it like, I don't know, sounds pretty good?
I know. It's hard to say. This one I feel like we try to bring some that were not on the BS factor as much, but we definitely get the one-offs of I heard something in my room, it was some lights, and then the power shut off. And
Or
I'm like,
there's a lot of like stories where you hear them in many different countries. You're like, that story sounds familiar from this country.
Yeah.
and
That's
this
interesting.
Sounds familiar. So they're
We're
all
finding a
like
lot of that.
hearsay per se.
It's like how pyramids appear in many different cultures.
Yes.
You're like, how
Yeah.
do they come up in the aliens?
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
The
But
there
aliens
you go,
build them all
right.
at the same time.
well, so
Or
speaking
Elvis.
Speaking
Yes.
of aliens,
Working with aliens.
we found out about this like haunted location in Australia that all they would see are these lights in these particular colors of like reds and greens and whites. And then we were looking at Mexico City where they had seen the same colors, the same shades
The
of
same-
colors
and they're all like in
and
a
the
straight
lights.
line.
So we were like, oh, that's interesting. We don't know if it's necessarily hearing it from another country and bringing that back to the country or if aliens are real and they literally have one
Also
way
seen in
of
Arizona
showing
as well.
us.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow.
So it's interesting to see all the tie-ins for everything.
Yeah, it looks like you don't believe over there.
I am not a very spiritual person, so I'm very skeptical.
Because
of
you
all
don't
of
have
Yes.
a soul, Michael.
Well, because I sold it.
Yeah, to rock and roll.
Yes, but I'm always interested in stuff like this, even though like I'm kind of always kind of like a skeptic of it.
I
It's funny
think-
you mentioned
yes.
like the red, green, and white lights, and I think of that's the color of the flag of Mexico, so that's where they got it from.
But Australia?
Or Italy.
Well, Australian,
Yeah.
they're all drunk.
Yeah.
I think they're actually all white.
I think my favorite part of this is when we watch these things, we try and, see if there's what I love the most is people's experience, not just hearing about it, but did you experience this? What came from that? And then you're watching Australian videos with the accent that's just so thick. And you're like, I have no idea what they're saying. Like, what damn to the bonies? And I'm like, I have no idea what any of this means. Where's my subtitles? We'll get the truth out.
Well, go ahead. Yeah.
Sorry, if I can tell a quick little side note. I think in one of our episodes, I talked about, I went to Mexico and my cousin was talking about how there's like this big hill, like, it's like a park, but it's a big hill. You can hike on it and whatnot. And they, my aunt bought a house near there. And so my cousin and her friend, they were just hanging out. And it's really dark there because it's still being there's still a lot of houses trying to like not grow, but being developed and stuff like that. So they're looking down in this like dark mountain and they see a red light flare up from the hill. And they're like, what is that? That's really weird. And they see this like object just hovering around the hill and hovering and hovering. And you're like, wait, are you being serious? She's like, no, I'm being like legit. Like there is something just hovering. And so she said that it was a flying object. Like it was like, an alien object just hovering around, and then it quickly just vanished up in air. And I asked her, and I said, did you see this before? Has anyone else seen this? And she goes, yeah, there's a radio host who does this, or like who talks about it, and he says that he's seen it too. And he's like, she's like, this isn't the only time. So you never know.
So I think with us, that's a lot of the issues we run into is we're skeptical. We don't necessarily believe, but then it's like,
but then people
other story
like my cousin told me.
Yeah.
So it's like, maybe it's real, maybe it's not. Maybe she was high. Who knows?
I mean, okay,
Or
yes.
drunk. I don't know.
Oh, could be high or drunk.
Yeah.
with your cousin.
Either
All
of
right.
those.
But
Or
it's
both.
kind of like any other story this person would tell me, I would believe.
Yeah.
Until you see the source and you're like, oh,
And then I'm like,
maybe.
when was this? She's like, a couple years ago. And I was like, why didn't you record this? Like, you have a cell phone.
Yeah.
Right.
Didn't she know we'd be doing a podcast
Like, come
in
on,
years?
help me out, girl.
Yeah, we need it for our digital footprint.
Yeah.
Well, cool. Great opening story. And before we get too far, I want to let people know that they can find all the social handles and all the information on the Stupidstition podcast at stupidstition.com. Their Twitter's at Stupidstition. Their Instagram is at Stupidstition. And on Facebook, it's facebook.com/Stupidstition. And okay, ladies, I know you're the experts in superstition, but Richard and Michael are going to give it their best shot.
I'm excited.
And they may incorporate something other than that which is found in regular kind of folklore. They may go in other directions because they're weird.
Yeah, as is our want, we kind of
bring
fall
it.
towards pop culture a little bit. But I think the first one that we're going to talk about is the Winchester Mystery House in San Jose, California.
Oddly enough, we were going to possibly cover that one,
Oh
so
my
I'm
God.
glad we didn't.
Hey, 12
We love this
million
one.
visitors can't be wrong.
Have you guys been?
I have not, even though I grew up near-ish the Winchester Mystery House. I've never been. Michael?
No, me neither.
Have you guys seen the movie? Just came out this year.
No.
Oh, is that the haunting of...
No, with Helen Mirren. It's
yeah.
just called Winchester.
Oh, then no. I don't see any movies. I have a young
Yeah,
son.
we both have young kids, so we don't. If it's not animated, then I have no idea what it is.
Okay.
So they'll tell you about the Mystery House, and Liz, you can chime in and see how the movie
I love it.
derivates.
So Frankenweenie you've seen that.
I don't know. When the main actress walked down the stairs, that didn't happen. So, no.
What do you find compelling about the Winchester Mystery House?
I think it comes back to like the skepticism, but a lot of the story on why the Winchester Mystery House is built was based on Sarah Winchester, who's like the heiress to the Winchester gun fortune, how she was kind of told throughout her life by like a medium that she was basically responsible, or that the ghosts of those that were killed by her sons. I can't remember how it is. Husbands, yeah. But she was like whoever it is, it was her husband or the son of something like that.
Yeah, it was.
It was basically that she would be haunted by all of those that were killed by those rifles, and the only way you could keep it at bay, the spirits at bay, is to keep building this house, and the house doesn't have to make sense.
I started asking questions at that point, by the way, like what A does not lead to B. That's some faulty logic right there.
Yes, I think the theory was that once the house is completed, she would meet her end. So therefore, she kept building. That's why it didn't make sense. I'll put a door somewhere. I just got to keep building this house.
And I love the idea of appeasing these spirits and keeping these ghosts at bay by, I don't know, putting in some laminate tiling and, just do some the flooring. You got to put some cross beams in there and put a door and then put some bricks behind the door because you don't need to do anything.
Yeah.
I just love that idea that she's fighting the forces of
It's like
the
almost like an anti-haunting.
Yeah.
She's like fighting the haunting by being like Bob Vila, master home builder.
There's something very interesting about keeping them on the other side.
Well, I think what your podcast seems to can't hear myself. I think one thing your podcast brings up is supernatural occurrences can be real or can be fake, but how we respond to them is the most compelling thing. And it tells the most colorful story about who we are as human beings and
Yes.
how she responds to it.
Yeah, she turned like an 8-room house into a 160-room house, which is like that is
Insane.
Yeah.
literally insane.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because on
It's-
Zillow, that's going to be weird. That's going to be like,
You're like,
wait,
how
one
do we
bathroom?
price range this? You know?
The property taxes on that alone.
Yeah, this house is like HGTV's like fantasy house where this will continue on through season 8, through season 10. They're like, just keep building. Yeah, law of shiplap, I assume.
And nobody had the 1906 earthquake help them more than her because it knocked down like half the building.
Yeah.
So she could just start building all over
building,
again.
yeah.
Yeah.
It's a bed and breakfast.
Right. Lots of bed
Yeah.
and breakfast.
Could you imagine just going there and where's your restroom? Third door on the right. You're like, oh God, where am
You're
I
like, but
going?
there's only one, so figure it out.
There's also 15 doors.
Yeah, there are several of them that don't work.
Yeah.
Only one
Yeah.
of them that does.
Exactly.
Cool. So we've each chosen one of our hauntings, and we've each had a sip of the drink, and we've each been eating some of this delicious candy corn from 7-Eleven. Did we on another episode determine that candy corn all comes from one factory and it never goes away?
Right. Yeah. It's just nothing but just like a backlog.
Yeah, backlog like fruitcakes. And we hope everybody in our listening audience is having a good Halloween and is listening to this podcast in a spooky place. So why don't we go into our second haunting from the hosts of Stupidstition.
Okay. I was just going to say, I'm so glad you got our list of demands before.
The writer-
Hostess donuts and candy corn.
yeah. It's classy.
On demand, please.
So classy.
Chips and salsa. Okay, so the other one we're going to talk about is the Hona Ona, who's also known as the Bone Lady. And
I've been called the Big
Yes,
Hona
Hona Ona
by
is
Orb.
in Japan,
yeah, she originates from Japan.
and she's a lovely young woman who basically she takes the spirits. Wait,
Yeah.
We went from the Philippines
Yes.
to Japan. Is that correct?
Oh,
Okay.
we're going all around the world,
We're
baby.
going-
This is
Yeah.
awesome.
So the Hona Ona is essentially this demon monster. And when someone, say there's a paired couple and one passes away, she becomes the Hona Ona. And she tries to come back to the person she left in our world to be with them. So in this process, she continues to come back to the house, until she's let in. Once she is let in, she can be with her lover that she had once left. The person sees her, they go, "You've returned to me. I love you. I'm so glad we're meant to be together again." But each night that she spends with that person, their life is drained a little bit to help keep her moving on and surviving. So in this process, it's very hard to get rid of her once you've welcomed her back into your life. It's a very strong presence that you need to have, or someone kind of guiding you to say, "Don't let this bitch back in." Like, she's
very
trouble.
vampiric.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's kind of like modern relationships when you break up and then they
Yeah.
try and get together and you're the best friend saying, "Oh, honey, no,
yeah.
no, don't do this again."
It's like a marriage. It sucks the life out of you.
Yeah,
Am I right?
yeah,
Well,
We're
and-
trying to be less douchey on the show.
Hona Ona, no.
Exactly. No bone, lady. No bones for you.
I'm fascinated that we've chosen 3 female-led superstitions so far, hauntings so far. So,
I
yeah.
think I wonder if
I
that's
think-
what we kind of usually do.
I think it was kind of like coincidental.
Yeah.
I feel
Okay,
like we.
okay.
Or women just make it better in the afterlife than men.
Yeah,
Men are
I
like,
thought
"I'm
that.
retiring, I'm hanging out, I'm taking a nap." Women are like, "How do I crawl back into your life
Vengeance.
through this
Yes.
grave?"
I've spent my whole life being a monster, is what men say. Like,
Yeah.
I'm going to take it easy when I die.
Yeah.
Does how commonly held is this belief in Japan?
Extremely.
Oh.
So it's also a representation of depression. That happens.
okay.
So once someone passes, your life slowly starts to drain away without having them. So she's actually referenced still quite frequently of the Hona Ona has a hold of your uncle or your father or something.
wow.
And then in order to get her out per se, you have charms and prayers will remove her from your being and household.
But if you don't, then she will take your life away. So eventually you will pass away with her, and she will not realize, like the whole time the Hona Ona doesn't realize the effect they're having. She doesn't realize that she's draining the life as well. So eventually when that person passes, she just may move on to the next person. and move on.
And she's also disguised as like a lovely young woman, so you wouldn't know, and you're like, okay, great, she's talking to me. This
But
is
she's
not.
Who's
the
this?
person who died. She would be
Yes.
the same.
Yes.
Okay.
No, she comes
She's-
back in a more beautiful form to fill that void.
Oh wow.
Yeah, so you're like, who's this honey throwing rocks at my window at 2 a.m.? Come on up, girl.
Oh, so it's kind of like a rebound relationship.
A little bit, yeah.
wow.
Like, I think at the time you're just looking for that comfort. And if it's at 2 a.m. and your Tinder profile goes off, that's the Hona.
It's like a booty call. Basically, it's a supernatural booty call.
This
Yeah.
is like one of the most emotionally resonant of superstitions or hauntings that we've dealt with. It seems just to apply to romantic love and loneliness and all that kind of stuff.
And I'm intrigued by this one because a lot of these superstitions, I'm sure you guys deal with this, are kind of come up as ways for people to explain things they don't understand.
Yes.
Right? So if you're talking about this being related to depression, I would imagine that there's some element of that, of suddenly somebody is not acting like themselves, somebody is depressed. How do we explain that? Oh, well, maybe there's...
It's got to be a ghost.
Gotta be
Yeah.
ghost.
They're clearly possessed.
Yes.
They didn't eat my vegetables.
Exactly.
Okay, so yeah, we've seen these hauntings and superstitions as a way, something that reveals our character, and as something that is a way for us to deal with those things that we can't explain away in our real lives.
Right.
Yeah, the strong emotions we can't.
So far, we've learned don't pick up hitchhikers. Don't start on construction that you don't know how long the project's going to go. And, don't have anyone die.
Yeah.
So-
Yes, simple
Learning
rules.
lessons.
Simple
Yeah,
rules
so far
to
so
follow.
good.
Yeah.
All right, we're almost at halftime, and so Richard and Michael are going to tell us their second haunting.
Okay, so our second one is the Legend of Sleepy Hollow.
Never heard of it.
Nah, it's a pretty regional story to the specific to the New England area.
It's crap. It's called legend. I wrote it off as soon as you
Yeah.
said it.
Good point.
Okay, all right. So tell us the legend.
So it's basically the story of Ichabod Crane, who is a complete goober.
But he's so emo. If you look at him now, he's skinny. He's got
Yeah, he
dark
really
hair.
he's
is.
so
Yeah, he
hot.
is like the most like
Shoegazer.
Yeah.
shoegazer type guy you could possibly imagine.
What is the best looking version of Ichabod Crane that we've seen in pop culture?
The
'Cause there's
Dexter,
been-
right?
Jeff Goldblum?
Good. Jeff Goldblum did him.
Johnny Depp.
Johnny Depp.
Johnny
Yeah.
Depp,
But-
and then
The cartoon version's pretty hot with the big floppy ears.
The big Adam's
Just
apple.
saying,
I basically just
yeah.
know this is a Disney story, so that's what
Yeah.
I'm telling.
Oh,
Essentially.
okay. Oh,
Right,
you're
yeah.
setting us up.
What
Okay.
company? Never heard of
I've never
it.
Disney. Never
Never heard of it.
Yeah, we're not allowed to mention that on the show.
Can't mention the D word.
The D word.
Keep the D out of this.
Yeah,
You can talk about D all you want.
yeah, we've talked about it quite a bit, in fact.
So this is something that seems indigenous. We've been all around the world so far. This is very much indigenous to the United States in the early part of this country's existence, right?
what I think drew us to this one initially is we were going to go down the Scooby-Doo trail of
Amusement parks and
these
ghost
kids
towns.
investigating hauntings. And then we realized that maybe the original investigation of a haunting is is dealt with in this legend of Sleepy Hollow and
Yeah.
Ichabod Crane, where he's a school teacher and he's basically driven out of town by this legend, basically, which may actually turn out to be a ghost, but it may actually be just someone dressed up in a costume
Yeah.
that's kicking him out of town. And that felt very Scooby-Doo-ish. And it felt very resonant of just the idea that a legend could kind of turn into reality and you believe it
Yeah.
because of all the legend that led up to it. You know,
Yes.
the headless horseman that killed Hessian, what is it?
Hessian.
Hessian.
Yeah.
Hessian warrior. And so it just felt like this is when the things that happen and the things that people talk about actually happen, although it's in a story, and then it just becomes more realistic. It kind of
It almost seems to occupy the Grimm's fairy tales
Yeah.
world where there was blood and gore and good and evil and life and death all happening in the daily lives of these people, and they weren't protected from it. And so those things that were happening in real life got slightly mythologized and passed on as cautionary tales to children and adults alike. So things went from real to fairy tale pretty quickly, but it's not like their life was easy. If you were alive during those times, you probably dealt with all kinds of sickness and fatalities. And
Yeah, malaria was your headless horseman.
Yeah,
I mean, and as we're approaching Halloween, I think just like the indelible image of a pumpkin on top of a head, either be it the Disney
yeah.
cartoon or I don't know if the original story, the Headless Horse. I think the original
Yeah.
story, the Headless Horseman threw a pumpkin or a jack-o'-lantern at Ichabod Crane and knocked him unconscious or whatever and drove him out of town. But like just that image is so visceral, and it kind of has been pervasive in at least in American culture over the last 200 years.
Yeah, terrifying.
That has to be. I imagine did jack-o'-lanterns predate that story? I wonder, or did he kind of invent it?
Yeah.
They must have. Okay.
I feel like that's like a...
Everybody was carving pumpkins just for fun. Back
Even in the Depression, they had
if you had to look at
pumpkins.
it, you look at a pumpkin, you go, I want to stick something really
The
sharp into
Egyptians
that,
had
right?
like triangle-shaped.
pumpkins.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm interested in this also because most of the time a haunting story has the person being haunted is somebody you're supposed to feel sympathetic toward. And I don't know that you're supposed to feel sympathetic toward, in the original story at least, Ichabod Crane.
Oh.
Because he's kind of a
heroic.
wuss.
Oh, okay.
Can I say that?
Yeah, I guess
that
so.
okay in
Why are you staring at
2018?
me when you say that?
Looking at your arms.
Okay,
buddy.
all right, sorry. I got to work out.
But no, he's somebody who's sort of like very like Don Knotts would have played him
Yeah.
if Disney did the movie
For
in the
sure,
60s.
yeah.
He's not somebody he's sort of full of himself and kind of arrogant.
Yeah.
There's no redeeming quality to anyone in this story, frankly. So it's kind of interesting from that.
Outsider too, as well, is someone that
Yes.
comes into their town and is probably skeptical of it, and
Yeah.
then kind of gets proven wrong and driven out. And I think that kind of just rebuilds on the myth of it.
Well,
I
I
did
think
love
like
that-
from the town's perspective, it's like we've been investigating this and we can't figure it out. So now this hot shot, and where's this take place? Like Massachusetts or like something.
Somewhere in
This
New
hot
England.
shot from New York comes in. He's like, I'll solve it in a week, and they're like, okay, homie, we'll see. Like no hints, no helping. Here's a jack-o'-lantern.
We've built a whole tourism campaign around this.
Exactly. We're
the whole
embracing
Chamber
it.
of Commerce has built their whole budget around this, and now you're going to come in.
So we have we've actually talked on Stupidstition about a few countries who have actually embraced the haunting so much that they had international ghost hunters on there that asked them to change their review of Not Haunted because they're like, this is how we're getting people in this town.
wow.
Like there's one hotel in this entire city that this is happening with. Tell them it's haunted
Yeah.
so that we can get this tourism and bring in more money into the economy.
Oh, wow. That's their only gross domestic
For some of
product is-
these, yeah. In Australia, where the lights are, it's all on these lands of these flat lands. So for them, they're like, no, let's keep this alien,
Yeah.
story alive a little bit.
The other day, I was randomly looking up places, like actual literary places, like on Google Maps, and I was looking up like Dracula's castle.
Yes.
It could have been that I was listening to your
We've
episode
covered
on,
that.
We've
We
covered
covered
it.
that.
I was listening to your episode on Romania.
Yes.
And I was looking at the distance between how long would it take to drive from Dracula's castle to Castle Frankenstein?
Yes.
17 and a half hours of a drive, right? With toll roads and everything.
Yeah.
And I was
Road trip!
and just like you said, how many of these places, how many of these towns are just built on, you're in the town that is Frankenstein's castle.
Yeah.
So come here and give us your money and we'll sell
Yeah.
you all the Frankenstein
Yeah.
BS
Yeah.
stuff that we can produce. And probably the same thing with the Romanian, the Castle Dracula or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, most of these countries and places in Central Europe, pretty much their economy is based on Dracula's, Frankenstein's, and weird porn that you can't film in the U.S.
Yes.
Those are like the three things.
And can I just say, I buy all of it.
Yeah,
I buy all three of those things whenever I go to different countries.
You're like, I've
and
never seen
towns.
this. Yes, please give me
Yeah.
a CD or whatever it is.
Yeah.
Copy.
I'll take a few.
An interactive CD-ROM.
Yes,
That's all they got.
CD, please.
Do you have this on cassette? I take two.
VHS.
All right, so we are now officially at our halftime where normally we would promote another podcast that's out there.
fuck them.
Yeah.
But we have another podcast here on our midst and our
Yay.
special crossover episode. So I'm just going to ask Brenda and Liz and Brenda to promote their podcast. Let us know where people can find it.
You're ready.
We were
at
ill-prepared for this.
stupidstition.com is one of the places, and I know that's where I clicked on links to find their Instagram, their Facebook. If you just Google Stupidstition, you're definitely gonna bring it up. But like, okay,
Honestly, if you Google stupid, we'll probably pop up.
I love the description. Stupidstition Podcast features your two besties, Liz and Brenda, covering creepy tales from all over the world, from folklore to paranormal. They cover superstitious stories with a libation from that nation. What are some drinks that you
Yes.
drank on your show?
So many good ones.
So we had a glog that we did.
Yeah.
What?
A glog.
Oh, wow.
Which is Danish.
It's like a grog and a shoe, like a clog.
Yeah.
Sure.
Or a glog. Yeah, sure.
So we
It's a grog, you drink it out of a clog.
We go, this one sounds really good, but the name is Glog. How can we make this sound sexier in any way? We're like, no, we can't. We're just going to glog
That's
it.
that
Yeah.
foreign girl your friend, or foreign guy your friend meets on a summer vacation. His
Yeah.
name is Gloggy. He's really sweet. He runs a website. You don't want to see the website.
I mean, he's got the one eyebrow, but
Yeah,
past that.
he's a good guy. What else? What else?
We've done a Romanian bloody fang. That's what we call it.
Oh, that sounds good.
So it's basically like
Bloody
plum.
Mary?
No,
Not really?
I mean,
Just blood.
Just blood.
Yeah,
Available at Trader Joe's.
blood of a plum, plum brandy. So it's a little concoction of puree of red plums and stuff like
And
that.
can we find the recipes anywhere?
On our Instagram.
At Stupidstition.
Okay.
So we have a bunch of drink recipes on there. So the format of our podcast is a little bit of, we start off with a drink. When a train goes by, we do shots. We talk about a different country each episode and the Stupidstition's folklore or mythology around that area. And then we'll end it with a tarot card reading.
Oh, that's cool.
So
then-
to help predict the future for our audience.
Yes. So then we tell our audience, like, if it comes true, please email us, tell us anything if it came true.
Yeah, but you know what? It's so funny because we do a lot of sidetracks in it. We go, side note, let's talk about this real quickly. And you can tell by the time we get to tarot, we're usually shit-faced at that point. So we're like, think good things in your future. All right, cut it. Thanks for
Like,
listening.
we're done, bye.
Yeah,
We're done,
cut
bye.
it off now. So, yeah, I wouldn't go there necessarily for the tarot, but for the drinks and the
Cocktails,
stories.
yeah.
Oh, I
Check
can
us
vouch
out.
for you. So can you, Michael. We've listened to episodes and they're really cool. So if you're a fan of like My Favorite Murder or some of the other kind of, I don't know,
Last podcast on the left.
you'll dig it.
Yeah.
Okay, so you said your wife likes those too, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
And so do I.
My wife. Okay.
And if you like, a very Californian accent, a lot of likes and does,
a lot of
we
vocal
have that
fry.
for you.
Totally.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're
Totes.
jumping back. We've had our mid-episode snacks in front of us. We've had sips from our cool drink, which you can find the recipe on Stupidstition.
Which, by the way, if you hear someone who sounds like a zombie, it's just me eating these
Eating milk duds.
frozen milk duds that Jeff has left in front of me.
And now we're going to jump in with the third choice for the Mount Rushmore of Hauntings from Liz and Brenda. And that third choice, they're chewing. Sorry. Well, let me tell you guys, you can find out more about Mount Rushmore podcast by going to our Facebook page on Facebook, and you can contribute to the conversation by suggesting future episodes for us to discuss. You could elect you can suggest a Mount Rushmore, and we just might do it because we've done that before. We also have Instagram, and we also have Twitter. So if you just Google Mount Rushmore or Bing Mount Rushmore or Yahoo
Alta Vista, yes.
Vista, if you Lycos Mount Rushmore, you'll find us.
Yeah, and also if we pick your suggestion, we may force you to be on the show.
Yes, we may force you to.
It happens.
So yeah, and you will get a free Big Mac from participating McDonald's.
None of them participate.
None of them are participating. We have refreshed our drinks. We have available to us a plethora of Halloween candies and baked goods, and we are now going to begin the second half of the special spooky and maybe spoopy. That's a new thing now, spoopy.
What does that mean?
It means funny and scary kind of at the same time.
Spoopity spoop.
Yeah. Yeah. What did she said? Just said.
Okay.
YOLO. I don't
Okay.
know. Okay. So, of the Mount Rushmore podcast special crossover episode with the hosts of the Stupidstition podcast, and they are going to they were going to regale us with their third choice.
Okay. So we have the possession of Latoya Ammons.
Which happened in 2011.
Yes, and this happened in Indiana, so we're bringing it back to the States a little bit. And overall, in this claim of possession, she had 3 children that all became possessed as well through all the spirits. She moved into a house. They got freaked out. Dog refused to come in the house, that kind of situation. Month later, flies all around the screen doors, trying to get into the house. They thought, maybe it's just like weird weather or there's like a drought, so the flies are trying to get in. They couldn't figure it out, but they were in masses. Eventually, the children start to act a little bizarre. One, at a certain point, one of the daughters is levitating above the bed. Another point, one of them is walking on a wall. And what's interesting about this story is this happened in 2011. So according...
You won't believe it, kind of thing.
Yeah, and according to the records, Child Protective Services actually came out to the house a few times to check on these children. They've been admitted to the hospital before through doing these weird acts of possession. And Child Protective Services even came to the conclusion that they are possessed.
Whoa.
Like, they were like, we can't say this on the documents, but like this is all the behavior that's associated with it. We also have written statements from police officers who have come to the house to inspect the house and said, we would see these drippings on the walls, this like almost moist liquid falling down on the walls. We'd wipe it off. We'd come back. We'd go to another room, come back. The drippings all came back.
Even like a shadowy figure.
They've seen shadowy figures in the house, stuff like that. So the truth about this matter is what I like about it is when people buy a house, they don't necessarily have the means to immediately, well, let's sell the house and pack up and leave. It's like, my money's tied up in the mortgage. We have nowhere else to go. So she was forced to stay there for months after.
And it took like about a year or so for them to, I guess, cleanse
the house completely, for her to move back in. There was a time where I think for 6 months her children were taken away because she had no means of leaving the house, and other family members stepped in and they said, we'll take the kids to get them away from this evil presence. And
we won't take you, though.
Yeah.
You're going to stay here.
You're going to stay here. So through multiple exorcisms, they finally had a priest that would come in and agree to do the exorcism. He finally did, and it's been in a lot better of a situation.
Right.
I believe they moved since then, but they may be still living in the house with no other issues.
Yeah, so they performed an exorcism in April, I was going to say 2020, but April 22nd of 2012. And they did 3 exorcisms, 2 in English and 1 in Latin. And then they performed one on Latoya. And after the family moved to Indianapolis in 2012 after the exorcism happened. So then all the events kind of just stopped.
Came to a stop. And the people who had lived there before, never an issue, nothing. And then when this family moved in, all this stuff started happening. And to the point that they eventually had to move out.
I think there's news reports of it too.
And they have said, because they were renting this house, and they said since then there's like the landlords are like, stop coming by. There's been nothing since then. Stop taking photos of the current residents in the house.
Or it could be that like a demon or a ghost or whatever it is followed them throughout wherever they were from.
To the next location.
Yeah.
See, folks, this is why you should always read your lease before you sign it. Totally. Most people just sign it and they don't look at it and see the
fine print.
The
fine
addendum.
print. Yeah.
And the bloody addendum.
Yeah. In California, it's a law that if a murder has taken place in your residence within 10 or 20 years, the realtor legally has to let you know. If not, I believe there's a website.
Who owns that house?
That was an episode of The Simpsons.
I killed a pizza the other night.
I'm not surprised this happened in Indiana, which is known as the Boozer State.
Yes.
I was waiting.
I was sitting on that. I was sitting on that for about 4.5 minutes.
That.
I was going to ask Michael, who's born and bred Angelino, is married to a Hoosier from Indianapolis, or
Basically, she's about from half an hour outside the city.
is this? Does she have a bunch of stories of her friends and stuff like that being haunted?
Why are they called that? I don't know that.
The Hoosiers?
Yeah, I don't know.
No one really knows what Hoosier
that mean?
means.
It's very Canadian, no?
No, that's Hoser.
Oh.
Even the Indianans, the
They don't
Hoosiers
know.
don't know what Hoosier means.
Yeah. Well,
They don't know a lot in Indiana. Let's
Hey,
be fair.
let me say that I'm from the Midwest.
Unnecessary.
And I'm not
Make fun of his state.
Oh, that's
Not
true.
my wife's state.
His state doesn't exist,
Michael's
so we can't.
wife is a very high-class kind of gal. I'm Pole White Trash from Kansas. So our house had shit dripping on the walls. Our
Yeah.
house had flies. Our house
Well,
had
So it was haunted,
kids
probably.
with haunted faces, malnourished
Haunted,
children.
yeah.
You would have come by our house and you would have thought that place needed an exorcism
Yes.
about any time you came by.
Well, in the story, one of because I believe 2 of the children, including her, gets possessed throughout this time, and the daughter who gets possessed, the accounts are from when she had a sleepover, and she started walking on the wall. And
God.
so I'm like, that's a pretty cool party trick. Like, if I'm coming back over next time.
It's light as a feather, stiff as a board.
Yeah.
Bitch is up on the wall.
I know, I'm like, I brought Monopoly. Like, oh, God. How do I compare to this entertainment?
The only ghost story we have is one time we'd stayed at like a hotel in like downtown Indy on like the Pioneer Circle or whatever that is, when we went back for Christmas, I think, one time. And we stayed in a hotel that was known to be haunted, that they mentioned it. It almost feels like a touristy type thing that
Yes.
you guys were talking about earlier, where like that's part of the
The allure.
The allure of staying there is like, you don't want to go up to the 13th or 14th floor, whatever they call it,
Yeah.
because, just
It's creepy.
there's a lady there.
The
And-
ghost of an ice machine.
And you can tell they feed into it too, where it's
Oh,
like
yeah. Love it.
the murder happened in room 13, so you can get room 12 or 14, but you can't get room 13. I'm like, you guys are constructing the bathroom right now. Like, I know what's going on.
I was just looking as we were talking about this. I was just looking and saw that this was made into a movie
Ooh,
in 2014, and it's called Demon House.
yes.
The Latoya?
Yeah,
Huh.
but who knows how much of it was actually
True.
how much is actually based
True
on
to the story.
True to the story. If they just buy the story and then do whatever they want with it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I wonder how often that happens, where a movie is made of
Amityville.
a ghostly event.
Yeah.
And how that kind of, a lot of this is just like refueling the legend.
Yeah. Right.
Whether the legend becomes a movie and then that kind of is like, oh, well, I saw a movie about this, so it's
And I
gotta
think
be true.
And I think this, with this particular story, the legs of it, of saying, Child Protective Services has this on document. Like the police officer who came to the house originally, he's given testimony on how he believes the house is haunted. So it's finally these outside sources that believe in it too. It's not, a psychic coming in and saying, oh, it's true, pay me.
Oh, yeah.
It's people that are like, no, I don't want to go back into
Civilians,
that
you could say,
house.
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, guys, what is your third haunting?
Okay, so our third one is also it's pop culture, but it's also a in-home haunting. And it's the first movie that personally I know scared the crap out of me, which was Poltergeist.
Yes. They're back.
Yeah, this was the first time I remember seeing this when it came out on HBO.
Oh, yeah. This was on repeat.
Every,
every hour you
Well, every time you turn on HBO now, it has the screen of the static and then
Yeah.
HBO, and you're like, is she
is
going to say they're
Poltergeist.
here or
Yeah.
they're back? Or which
Yeah.
what movie am I watching? Oh, no, it's just Sesame Street.
Yeah.
Right now we're watching.
I would just want to fall asleep to that gremlin lady's voice
All are
whenever
welcome.
you go into
Zelda
that. Yes.
Rosenstein, Zelda something. Rubenstein.
Yeah.
Something so comforting about that
She
voice.
I think she was renowned for her humanitarian activities and was living in New York, one of the first AIDS activists or HIV activists.
Really?
Yeah. So she was the face. I think she was actually the face of HIV awareness, and it was. When she was portrayed, she was kind of portrayed as this kindly grandmother who was saying, "Get checked." So she had this big identity outside of that. So
you're saying HIV was the poltergeist?
I'm not-
Are you doing an extended analogy here, Jeff?
Interesting.
Where are we
Came out in
going?
1982.
Symbolism.
It's here.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Come on, guys.
So why did you find that a compelling story?
Because it scared the crap out of me.
You know what they do at the
But
beginning of that
no,
movie?
go
They smoke
ahead.
a reefer. They smoke a reefer.
They
right
do?
there on the bed, and then
well, that's
shit
the
goes down.
gateway drug to the
That is the
spirit
gateway.
world.
Yeah, it really is. All the smoke and the next thing you know.
Suburban possession.
It's a suburban possession story. I know there are things like Amityville Horror and stories like that had come out before. But I think with Poltergeist, it was the first time that it really became like a family.
Yeah.
Like the fact that the kids were being targeted specifically as a kid scared the hell out of me. I also remember that's one of the first movies where I got mad at the screen.
Why?
Why?
Because after they do the whole thing, and they do the possession, and they get it out, and they rescue Carrie Ann, they continue to live in the house until they're able to sell it or whatever they're doing. It's like, no, you guys are rich. You're not like the person from Indiana. Go get it. Go to the Holiday Inn. Go.
Yeah.
I think what makes that movie hit home is it feels like it was filmed in the same neighborhood or the same house as the family in E.T.
Yes.
And it came out right around the same year, 82. So for one was like a broken home family story about an alien that was lovable, yada yada. The second is like, oh, this is the same house, and all of a sudden you find out it's built over like a burial, a cemetery.
Yeah, I think it was an Indian burial ground. Or something
It was
like
Are
that.
you picking that
the
up?
second one, I believe.
Second one was an Indian burial ground. What is happening here, Jeff?
Yeah, are you picking that up?
Is a fridge? No.
Yeah, there's a poltergeist that's
Oh.
it's gone.
It's gone. We just had to say the word.
We should. We need the
say-
sage. We need the sage.
Let's get the sage. For you listeners at home, we're saging the podcast studio right now.
The story behind Poltergeist is that the series of homes, or this one specific home in this like kind of tract housing, was built over a burial ground. And what they did is they removed the headstones, but they didn't remove the
They claim
bodies.
they moved the whole
Yes,
cemetery.
so
but
they kind of
haven't.
desecrated the sacramental grounds. And like those poltergeists are effing scary. They're fucking scary, and they're effing scary.
Yeah.
They're both levels from one end of effing scary all the way to fucking scary.
Yes.
And fucking apostrophe right in the middle, all three levels. And they're just it just gets you. And I think because they attack a little girl, pull her into their universe, then they have to go in to like this weird, gross, slimy world and pull her. It's just
And being a child actor in the movie was like being a Spinal Tap drummer in real life.
Yeah. Yeah.
People
The
kept dying. Yeah.
Two
Two of them
fatalities
died,
for
yeah.
the
I
young
was gonna
girls.
say if
That's pretty
you guys have to
interesting. I
talk
didn't hear
about the
about that.
curse of it.
I forgot that she died much later.
Yeah, well, the Carrie Ann died like 6 years later or something like that, and the older one, Dana, died like a year after.
Yeah.
So
And then
good times.
I'm not 100% sure, but I think some of the cast and crew, like some of the crew on it, had passed away as well. So there's stupidstitions all around that set of like bad things happening.
Yeah, it
And-
was the film director Brian Gibson who helmed Poltergeist 2 died in 2004. So it was
Yeah. Well,
They did.
so he died. The ghost works.
know what?
It was a long play.
Yeah.
the cast
yeah, exactly.
of The Wizard of Oz, they're all dead. Ooh, curse.
No
what
one
a
talks
curse.
about that
Yeah.
curse. Well, it's really interesting you bring that up because for me, one of the first movies that like ever terrified me actually was Paranormal Activity.
Oh, okay.
Because of that same factor, though, of you're in your bed, you're somewhere safe, and then the sheets just get ripped off.
Yeah.
And you're like, I'm not in this safe place anymore. Like, that's terrifying to me. like,
yeah.
I'm older, so that happens to me. That's just because my wife hogs the sheets.
yeah.
I'm asleep and all of a
I think
sudden,
that's every woman.
yeah.
Well, the suburbs and playful, imaginative kids seemed to be the territory of this producer Steven Spielberg, and the stories that he told. Producer Steven Spielberg.
never heard him.
Okay, sorry.
Is he like an indie?
I'm
He's
not
a
sure.
total indie. Yeah, and we think of the suburbs as this kind of wonderful place where hauntings don't happen.
Well, Steven, we hope you get your big break one day.
Someday, kid, good
Yeah.
luck to you. Grab the camcorder, do something
Yeah,
good.
Steve,
Stevie.
hang in there.
Okay, so Stupidstition
All right, our-
hosts. This
our
is your
final one.
final haunting choice to present. And there will be judging at the end, but let me tell you, you're in the lead.
Oh.
Okay.
Oh, how exciting. Okay. Well, there's only one way to botch this. so our last one we're going to talk about is an asylum.
Oh, kick ass. Arkham Asylum. Batman goes
Yeah.
in there.
Have you heard of a man named the Joker? Which one was this
The
from?
Fremantle Lunatic Asylum in Australia.
Yes. Okay, so one of the reasons we picked this place was it has a lot of rich history to it. At one point, it had been occupied by the American military, this particular location, I think during World War II, as a location where the military could meet up as a safe location and like move on from there. But as it had started, it's Australia. So let's just get to it. It's the land of the crazy, where people were being shipped over there as prisoners, and then they created the asylum for the crazy prisoners.
Penal colony, I think, is the fun term to call it, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I mean, they had a nuclear bomb go off in the middle of the outback and nobody noticed. This is my favorite Australia story of all time. So.
Or was that aliens?
So populated by renegades, outlaws, or
Yes.
people trying to start a new life.
Yes. In fact, I have a note on here, Japanese prostitutes as well. So exciting stuff was
Exciting
happening.
stuff.
Exciting stuff. But in this location, there was multiple incidents of ghosts and ghostly things that had happened. I want to say this is also, I think during the time, a woman had been checked into the asylum, and the husband tried to get a hold of her and visit her, and they were like, oh, she's sick. And sure enough, because of this location, unfortunately, it was a lot of mentally ill as well as prisoners mixed into the same location, and it was overcrowded. And she had been beaten to death by her cellmate. So when the husband had come back to see her, they were like, oh, she's no longer with us. And he was like, what the fuck? She's supposed to be healthy and better. And so it was actually, I love her because this one claim that made by the husband that actually shut the entire asylum down.
Oh.
To be like, no, this is not running okay. This is not up to board. Like, we need to stop what's happening here. So they finally shut it down. But there has been a ton of hauntings ever since.
So there's been the kissing ghost.
Or as we call sexual harassment. Me too, ladies.
People have experienced being touched by phantom lips.
Wait, so this was in the asylum?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Wow.
Oh, you can
So
you can
crazy
do
people
tours.
are saying that things like this have happened?
No.
Oh,
So
okay.
it was an
People do
asylum
tour, okay.
beforehand, and now they just
No.
give tours for
Yeah.
No,
the.
I meant,
regular-
I meant because they're Australian. I didn't mean
Yeah.
anything else. To do.
Yeah, they're kissing on the lips, not down under.
These all seem like
We'll edit that out.
okay. No, that's going to be the opener.
There's been a slimmer ghost.
Oh, so this is not
She's
Harvey
reading this
Weinstein.
wrong.
I thought
Am
it
I
was
reading
Harvey
this
Weinstein.
One sec.
Ghost.
So then also, one of the ghosts that comes from this location is known as the Slimer ghost.
Slimer
From
ghost.
Ghostbusters. Do you guys remember the guy that
Oh, yeah.
eats all the food?
Yeah.
Okay, well, they have their very own
Own
in this
version,
asylum.
John Belushi ghost.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Which, okay, can I say, me and Brenda, kind of our background is working in that world a little bit of entertainment.
Ghostbusting?
I'm all
And
Ghostbusters. Yeah.
Ghostbusters.
They ain't afraid no ghosts.
Like our side job outside of this. It was really funny because in one of the first passes of the script for the new Ghostbusters that had just come out, it was this mafia guy eating at a buffet, and they shotgun him, and then his head kind of pops off and continues around eating things.
Oh, wow.
So I always found that interesting as to like that is supposedly why his form and his body was made up of. But
Oh, wow.
it was cut out later with more Chris Hemsworth scenes, so it was worth it.
Oh, well. So these are all things that were extant when the Fremantle was open, not afterwards.
No, so it has since then been turned into an arts center, I believe, and a museum.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, so people who are
So you
currently
can still
visiting,
get
Wow.
a tour here
Okay,
and
okay.
go in. So they've experienced a kissing ghost. They've experienced seeing Slimer,
These
the
are all
ghost.
Halloween costumes that
And
I've
then-
been before. Ooh.
And then a ghost that likes to push people down the stairs. So
Yes.
that's another one. So roughly there's about 10 spirits in this like
I
area.
do like that there are just like different types of ghosts. What kind of ghost are you? I'm a kissing
Yeah.
ghost.
Oh,
What
yeah.
are you? I'm the one that like ties your shoelaces together and pushes
Yeah.
you down the stairs. Okay.
And all of them testified against Brett Kavanaugh for Supreme Court Justice.
Who knew? When that came up in my job interview, I didn't get the job. So, yes, there's a male nurse, and then this one's interesting. There's a story of 3 sisters that were at the asylum as well, and it's reported that you can see them, and they will try to charge you for sexual favors.
What a
These 3
crazy
ghosts,
place.
because at the time they were kind of sold into this location for sex slavery. So to this day, they'll hear them whispering and giggling and feeling touches in certain locations that you're like, okay, now.
What's the name of this place?
I know.
again?
Let me read it.
Yeah. And then we also have little girls that have been seen around the location as well.
There's included cold spots, voices, banging noises, and moving objects, footsteps and smells and physical contact, black shadows, and part of full apparitions that have been told by their own ghost hunter in Australia as well that's seen all this stuff.
Yeah.
Wow. So
They
they
also,
get croc hunters and ghost hunters.
they've got it all.
Yeah.
They have
Wow.
like a shock room that whenever you enter, people have smelled the smell of burning metal or burning flesh once they enter the room.
Ugh.
And it comes and goes. So they assume it's the presence of the spirits bringing that smell. And then one of them is a woman on a staircase that numerous people have seen and even taken photos of, where it's just been like these light orbs that have appeared. And you can hear her saying, "Those are chains, and can I have your flesh?" And that was actually, "Can I have your flesh" was recorded on a paranormal investigator's taping.
Wow. What a freaky deaky place.
So
At least they're polite about it.
I know.
I think Australia, like just any other animal in Australia can kill you. And then you've got this crazy asylum that you walk into.
Yeah, no more dingoes,
Wow.
just ghosts.
Wow. Okay. Guys, they wrapped up pretty strong with this Fremantle Lunatic
Ooh,
Asylum.
well, we're going to go downhill real quick.
Okay. Okay. Gentlemen, what's your final choice on this spoopy Halloween episode, crossover edition of the Mount Rushmore podcast versus the Stupidstition podcast? Your final choice.
Our final choice, knowing that we had guests on the show today, knowing that usually we lose, like 4-0?
Oh, at
Richard?
least.
Sometimes
Somehow it's
5-0.
more than
Somehow the points get overly distributed. We thought, let's play to Jeff's sweet spot.
Ooh.
The Haunted Mansion at Disneyland.
Yeah.
How do you vote against this, clown?
That's a good one.
I dare you.
I vote for them. That's a good one.
The Haunted Mansion is one of the best rides at Disneyland. But what is wonderful about Disneyland is that they embrace all these different aspects of scariness and the storytelling. Like, they take you into a world of the dead and ghosts and weird goblin things in a park that's the happiest place on Earth.
Yeah.
There's something very interesting that they're as willing to embrace death and dismemberment.
And the macabre.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you know, the story that you lead through the Haunted Mansion is about this bride that has murdered her 5 husbands and cut off their head, and she's just killed her 5th, and maybe she's a ghost there for forever now. And
Actually, I don't think I know the story.
it's
My
very
kinda lady.
It's very strange. Like you walk, when you first walk through into the
elevator, right?
elevator, this ride, you see all these, macabre, silly things, and then it flashes and there's someone that's dead. And apparently that is like the husband.
Oh.
And he killed her before she could
Hang
kill
him.
him.
Okay.
But she's killed all of her previous husbands. And there's this, this
Black
you
Widow.
see her at the end of the ride. She's like saying, "Come back,
Yeah.
come back," and she's
And we
she's-
do. We're idiots.
we always said that.
I like that they invite you into this underworld, and they invite you into this haunted place where they invite you to be the latest resident, the 1001st ghost, the 1001st ghost. And I think it's just like all of these things are real hauntings are very scary. This is the opposite of that. This is the lighter side of, pardon the mad pun, but the lighter side of hauntings is something that we're all gonna die. We're all have to kind of reconcile with our own death. Let's do it in a doom buggy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I do.
I mean,
yeah.
we-
do you
we
guys
s-
like it, the attraction? Yeah.
We see these ghosts like dancing in a ballroom. Like,
They're having fun.
yeah, I'm kind of like, hey, this ride doesn't go the way it planned. I'll just hang out here.
Wait, is this a ride also that smells good too? Like it has hints of smells?
Oh, yeah. I think
Around
it's when you get into a
Halloween,
certain
yeah.
area,
Yeah,
a
it's
smell
like
will
sweet
come and
smell or
stuff.
something.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do find it fascinating that the attraction, the outer shell of the attraction was built and up for I think 2 or 3 years before the inside of the attraction was there.
Wow.
They had planned for it and they built the outside, but they hadn't really figured out how the inside was going to be. And I think it was also the technology at the time was evolving from the walk-through attraction to the people mover machine attraction. So that was one of the reasons. But leave it to Disney to have a comedy horror experience there. And what I love too about that attraction is there are Disney incorporates fairy tales and stories from literature and stories that we've grown up with, and they aren't afraid to steal from different ones and put them in. So there was one of the first film versions of Beauty and the Beast was a French version directed by Jean Cocteau, and in that film there are things like door handles and things that are knockers and candelabras and things that are alive and moving and creepy, because later on in Beauty and the Beast, they would sing and dance and be alive because they've been possessed just like the Beast has. And so they borrowed a lot of those things from that film. So that's why the door knockers are knocking and the handles look kind of like claws and things like that. So I'm fascinated by that attraction. And also, the music is so great. And
Sure. It's got Thurl Ravenclaw, for God's sakes.
yeah, Thurl Ravenscroft in his role as one of the Mellow Men in singing Grim Grinning Ghosts. It's so cool.
And they couldn't afford the rights to get or the money to get Vincent Price, clearly, so they wound up getting Paul Frees, who's the guy who did Boris Badenov in Rocky and Bullwinkle.
Oh, he's the best. I love the aspects of, this is Michael clearly courting my favor, but I also love, do you ever see
I
something?
know what I'm doing. Listen, I'm playing the judge right now.
I love the
Still
stuff
gonna lose 4-0.
that reminds you that it was done in the 60s, because you get into a Doom buggy at the time the Dune buggy craze was coming, and there's a hitchhiking ghost. They weren't doing that in Victorian England.
Yeah.
So that's so cool. And it's a good way to make out with your lady in that ride, right? High five. It got
Or to
creepy.
make out with the ghost.
Okay.
Or with
Yeah.
a ghost.
And
Right.
the hologram next to you.
Well, you guys know that it could possibly really be haunted, right?
I haven't heard that.
So, I
boy.
mean, this is all speculation, but insider information has relieved me that occasionally people will like to throw ashes of their past ones
Oh, wow.
onto the area of them dancing around. So I just have to assume that some sort of spirit has just taken a part of it and like held on maybe.
Wow.
So not too many like spooky stories, but I'm assuming if you're throwing ashes around of a body, a few spirits are going to stick.
Yeah. Yeah.
Of course. They're probably dancing in.
Yeah.
Dancing right along.
Looking for their corporal self, which is now ashes, but they want to kind of resume
Yeah.
and get their body back so they can walk.
Well,
among the living.
the ride boasts that they have 1,000 ghosts.
I thought it was 999 happy
Oh,
haunts.
it
Maybe
is.
that's what it is.
Okay.
What a bitch, A1.
Hey.
Yes.
I
We'll
can't.
cut that out.
I can't.
We'll cut that out, right?
Nah, leave it in.
Yeah, we're fine. The two females
in
were
France,
fine.
It's Phantom Manor. I think there might even be, I wonder if there is a similar storyline, but for Disneyland fans, there was a push by some people in Imagineering to try to unite the stories that would tie together the Pirates of the Caribbean, the Haunted Mansion, and Tom Sawyer Island, because they weren't all too far from each other from a time standpoint, with an underground tunnel that would go between all of them. Isn't that cool?
That's cool.
Isn't that cool?
I thought you were going to say they were going to tie in all the people who died, like on the People Mover,
Yeah,
Oh,
me too.
and drowned trying to go to Tom Sawyer's Island, all those sort of things. To actually tie in real life deaths.
With
Yeah.
Walt's disembodied frozen head looking down over
We
you.
do not give the
Condone?
location of that.
Yeah.
Ugh. It's on lockdown.
Okay, so we have been really privileged to be haunted by the host of the Stupidstition Podcast on this special Halloween crossover episode of the Mount Rushmore Podcast and the Stupidstition Podcast. And please remind us where folks can find the Stupidstition Podcast and the websites and all that stuff.
So we are on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter under Stupidstition. And if you have any ghost stories or folklore or crazy stories that you want to share with us on the podcast, email us
Yeah.
stupidstitionpodcast@gmail.com.
Yeah, our drink recipes.
Yes, on
Too.
Instagram.
Yes.
And subscribe.
Yes,
Yes.
please subscribe
So
on
you don't have to
iTunes.
go. You don't have to
Subscribe.
hunt for it. So it just appears.
Yes.
Exactly.
Okay, so if you've followed the Stupidstition podcast hosts over to the Mount Rushmore podcast and are listening to this for the first time, one of our format functions is to judge at the end of the podcast who wins. And normally it's Michael versus Richard, but this time we have guests and they're fabulous. So it is Liz and Brenda versus Michael and Richard. And I will list off the first. I as Jeff, the judge, will list off the haunting examples that I would like to etch into our Mount Rushmore. And the number one thing being etched into Mount Rushmore is the Haunted Mansion.
Yes. Woo, woo, woo.
Oh, and 999 ghosts that go with it. So that's 1,000 points.
Wow, that's pretty good.
I'm just spooking you. I'm being spoopy right now.
I don't know if we're cheering, but I'm excited for them. That was a good one.
Yes, they had a good one.
Yes.
And the rest of them belong to the Stupidstition host. So, guys, you just got owned. Okay, all right, so the rest of them are...
Moving on.
I was very spooked out by the Fremantle Lunatic Asylum in Australia, and I would like to go around the world to other international locations and list the other cool things. The White Lady of Bullet,
Yes.
which was in the Philippines, and Honaona in Japan. Thank you for scaring me and educating me.
Don't listen to this before you go to bed.
No, you might not wake up.
We've been telling the whole story with a flashlight to our face in the dark. Much spookier on our
Oh, it's so
end.
spooky.
Yeah.
All right, so this has been the crossover episode of the Stupidstition Podcast and the Mount Rushmore Podcast. We're going to go around the table. I, as always, am Jeff, and one of our guests has been...
Brenda.
And this is...
Liz?
And this
I'm
is...
Richard.
And I'm Michael.
Thank you. Happy Halloween.
Thank you.